All right. Thanks everyone for joining us on KRTD Chat. Trying to do these a little bit more frequently now, but yeah. So here today with us we have Daniel Luepker from Heartlands Media. Thank you for joining us, Daniel.
Happy to be here.
So first, I thought I'd start with a little surprise. So I want to pull up a graphic really quickly. I'm going to start with this. So I think you'll really like this. I put this together specifically because I know this is something that you're familiar with.
I'm not able to see that at the moment.
Oh, you got a pin for you.
Okay, there we go. Oh, thank you. Exactly. It's all the right words.
I thought I'd start with this.
Yeah, this is sort of the way that I live in terms of running everything. I understand that the most common way that you can interpret these words is in a very traditional Machiavellian Democratic Republican way of looking at the world. There's also a very clear progressive viewpoint in this, but what I love about Rules for Rulers, and why I talk about it a whole lot, is it's purely universal. It applies to everyone, every organization. It makes it very easy to tell who. So it's why it's very easy to predict very well structured, high money organizations and know exactly what they're going to do before they do it. It's why it's harder to determine what an individual person's going to do. But those words and understanding on how they work opened entirely everything political for me and beyond political. It's what I always say, it's the most important video you can watch is Rules for Rulers.
Definitely. So I want to give you a little bit of, so I saw you talk about it a couple times on the show, of course. I wasn't really too familiar with it. So before I interviewed you, Jerry told me that this is something that you live by, and he told me to go watch the video. So I watched the video, and it kind of really enlightened me. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. It definitely applies to the real world, and I'm like, I'm going to put this together. I'm like, we're definitely going to talk about this. So
yeah, it's whether you like it or not is irrelevant. This is how humans operate, and it's just the simple cheat code to seeing it. It's made me realize I was much more emotional when I dealt with politics before I understood this video, because, and I think a lot of people get this wrong. They think, oh, like Nancy Pelosi's an evil, terrible person. First of all, what does evil and terrible even mean? And it's not a useful thing to say. You're not able to pull any useful data out of someone being evil or terrible. What you can pull out of is, who are the people that keep her in power? How does she fund herself? How does the system that she operates, how is she injecting corruption into it? And how are all of the other systems of all the people in Congress, big business, working together to perpetuate individually those systems of, well, their own keys and their own supporters. So Nancy Pelosi has a base that votes for her all the time, based on the district that she has picked out to run in the first place. She knows where she's getting her support from. The reason she's able to exert a huge amount of power as Speaker of the House isn't because she's a useful lawmaker. That's not her job, isn't to be a useful lawmaker. Her job is to get reelected. And the best way for her to do that is to raise so much money that she can bribe everyone else to keep her in power.
Exactly. Now, the first rule is the one I want to turn everybody's attention to. So the first rule up here is, can we bring that back? So the first rule is, without power, you can affect nothing. Now, I think that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a thing that people like. It's like, I think the people that need to hear that the most are the people on Twitter that are just on Twitter and don't go anywhere else, or just on Facebook complaining to other people, or people that you might meet at meetings or gatherings or parties or whatever, who just talk politics. Then you ask them, hey, how are you involved? Do you go door knocking? Do you try and get, oh no, I don't do that. I just watch TV and regurgitate what's being said to me. Those people don't have power. Those people are literally the example of other people having power and pushing it onto those people. It's like, I love going to like places, especially with like older Democrats, and I just like to hear what they say so I can isolate what their favorite show is without even asking it. Because they're not powerful at all. They're just nameless, faceless foot soldiers of people that are.
Exactly. Like they'll probably like, oh, I watch Chris Cuomo all the time. Chris Cuomo says is probably what I now.
Yeah.
I want to talk about rule 2. Get the key supporters on your side. Now, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Okay. So this is important, because one thing that I really like about the way that Rules for Rulers talks about this is, alone you're kind of irrelevant no matter what you do. Everything matters because you're working together with other people. It's sort of one of the defining things of our species in general, is that we work together on things that we get out of something from those things. And so in terms of get the key supporter, if you're an elected representative, that just means to get enough people to make sure you stay elected. You get that 50% plus one. As long as you can do that, those are your keys. And it's important that you have the smallest amount of keys, because it's the easiest to manage. If you have to deal with 70 different groups that you have to get support from to get elected, it's like herding cats. If you have 3 groups of people that you need to get elected, that's much easier to do and maintain. And so again, it's like, what do we see from Democrats and Republicans? Complete use of knowing key supporters and having the smallest amount. Republicans have a smaller amount of key supporters than Democrats do, because they just draw from smaller, Republicans draw from smaller, not number-wise constituents, but like, evangelicals is a key group. whereas Democrats might have to do small business, large business, wealthy residents in the town, you know, something of that nature, and then like pay lip service and get a certain amount of minority vote out there, and then pretend it doesn't exist. But it's essential to get people supporting you to do stuff. I very much think of it as war is just politics with extra steps. That if you think about it in a war setting, it's who has the most infantry, are those infantry equipped, how are they trained, how are they dealing with things logistically, and how's the other side doing that exact same thing. You don't have to be the most well-equipped, the most well-trained group of soldiers to win a battle. The War for Independence against the British, the most feared Navy, the most feared army in the world and Navy at that time, showed that. You just have to do Fabian tactics, which is what Washington did. So he was able to negate those. So I think like an example of like a Nancy Pelosi, how you can help mess with her keys is, well, first you have to have enough of your own power to actually be able to do that and do it continuously.
Right.
But making fun of Nancy, turning her into a joke in her own district, that's an effective way to undermine her keys without doing a lot yourself.
Definitely. Now, another thing is, you mentioned having the fewest amount of keys is best. Now, when Bernie Sanders, in the beginning of the primary, he only had to get a plurality of the vote, so his keys were relatively small. When it became just him and Biden, or just him, Biden, and Warren, he then had to get a majority of the vote, so his keys grew, and he was not able to adjust for that, I would say.
Yeah, and also the keys. I would say I would interpret it a little differently. So okay. I think that he had a. Okay, so Joe Biden had a more reliable amount of keys. I think he had a slightly larger key set. I think Bernie was going for poor and working class. That was his main base of keys. He just couldn't fully convert them over to voting, even though he had a larger number. Potentially, he could not wrangle them as efficiently. And so Biden was able to win because they had money, they had TV on their side, and older people right now vote more than younger people.
That's unfortunately true.
And because younger people did vote, and then again, why did they not vote? They didn't feel they could win, is one. Maybe they lost faith in Bernie Sanders. Maybe they've lost faith in the system already. Maybe they just aren't really into politics and don't really even know any of this stuff's going on anyway. Or maybe also you have election fraud that happens and polling places are closed in certain areas that young people are at, like college. I remember still from, I think, 2016, someone had bought pizza for everyone in line at a, I think a Wisconsin college place. And like everyone was in line for like 4 hours because they're like, oh, we don't know how to staff things. That's clearly a coincidence. It has nothing to do with choice. And they forced the person giving out pizza to stop because now is the time to factor in that you're only you can't give more than like $1 to people without being considered a campaign promise, even though the pizza that they were giving, each slice was under $1. It didn't matter. But again, if those college students had some way to force that pizza to be given out and they had the power to do so and they had the great keys to do so, they could have stopped it, but they're not organized in any way of that nature. And most of them really don't even understand election law. Like I was really hoping in that video that I'm thinking of that someone would have said, hey, you said that you're not allowed to give $1 out more. That's a 16 slice pizza. It costs $15. That follows the rubric, but no one said it because again, the point of view of all the Democrats that were actually operating that college campus was slow the process down, lower the vote totals, do whatever you can to keep that happening and make sure they don't eat.
Makes sense. So I want to go to rules 3 and 4, and then I want to move on to another topic. But so control the treasure. Yeah,
it's in this world of, even if it's not even a capitalist system, capital or treasure really just means the things needed to. So in America, it's very easy. What is capital? It's money. It's money. Yeah. If you can spend $1 million on something, it's a lot easier to get it done than if you have $50,000 to make it happen, because then you have to do a lot of other stuff has to come in place. So money buys time, more specifically in capitalism, more than anything else. So if you want to get a bunch of people to vote for you, that's a lot of time that you have to put in to do that. Money makes that much easier. So those that control the treasure, that's your very large corporations, and like Nancy Pelosi controls a huge amount of re-election funds. that's why controlling the treasury is so important. That's why people back Nancy Pelosi, is because she controls the treasury and doles out money to people who need to win races. And then therefore they're going to do exactly what she says because she controls the treasury. If they want that money again, they got to go to her. And if they go against her, what's she going to do? She's going to find someone else and fund them just to make a point. With those big businesses, like, you know, Coca-Cola or Pepsi, like I was mentioning earlier, like they spend a lot of money to make sure that Americans think sugar is okay. Sugar, their drinks are delicious and quite on the part of a balanced meal. That's them using their control of the treasure to spend it to maintain their control of the treasure and gain more going forward. And so what a lot of independent media has a big issue with is we don't have a lot of treasure to control. And that's because I think this is good. I don't think that news should be necessarily profitable. I think it should be either a break even or a slight loss. I don't think you should ever go in a position where media is profitable, because that's CNN, that's MSNBC. Why would we ever want to be like that? But that means that you have to have another source of income. And when we were shadow banned over a year ago on Hardlens, that was back then, Hardlens ad revenue represented like 75% of the entire company's income. So we had to be very courteous to YouTube. I mean, we still do to some degree, but we had to be very courteous to YouTube, and really because they control our treasure. YouTube is the controller of 75% of our income. And that's always going to be on every single creator's mind. So what did we do? Well, we opened up, we have a space now that we just opened up that's actually helping people that want to start their own media channels. That's us dealing with that in other directions. So it's not just on YouTube. It's us opening and starting a number of entertainment channels that are very good for YouTube, that YouTube likes. And those have put us in a spot where we used to, like I said, had 70 to 75% of our income came directly from YouTube AdSense. Now it's 10% from
So it's a
Hardlens Media.
multi-pronged revenue approach.
Yeah, you always want to diversify in this era. So we have at this point, I think that's one reason I actually had to step back partially from Hardlens, is now I wear the hat of about 5 different companies that have various keys that each of them utilize, so that I am as safe as possible, so that the news component of the company doesn't need that income to survive.
I do think
each one of these
I do think this story, like the fact that you guys, Chicago Reacts has now surpassed Hardlens Media. Chicago at 47K subscribers. What's Hardlens at? 30,
It's been
30,
stuck just
39.
40.
Yeah, like, which forever after what you guys have been like reprimanded by YouTube, what, twice? I think, like officially.
More than that.
Yeah. So I do find it interesting that this channel, which you've made, and when did Chicago Reacts? When did you make that?
It's
like
a year and a month ago.
Yeah, like barely any time, and you're getting 4,000 views on a video from 3 hours ago. You know?
Yeah.
Which, like, if you tried to do that on Hardlens, 4 hours ago, you put up, you know, Miss Laney here, and it's 155 views. When you have a similar amount of subscribers, it's not much more than that. So, I mean, this is, to me, the most obvious sign of suppression. But
right, YouTube suppression, but on YouTube there are certain rules. The same way there are the rules for there are the rules of YouTube.
Yeah.
And the rules of YouTube say that political and news channels grow at a slower rate because of suppression and because of whatever. But channels like this can grow at a much faster rate and can produce a much faster revenue stream.
Because it's more advertiser friendly.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And so even if it's like our long-term, or at least again, it's Kit's now in charge of it, but my long-term plan for Hardlens Media is to legitimately just win the game by YouTube's rules and get us at Hardlens and Chicago Corner considered authoritative sources. And there's actually a form you can fill out that YouTube provides on doing that. And it's like I know roughly what they look for now. And so the way that I look at it is that right now, under current suppression, Hardlens is just again, right now is just making enough to cover its own cost. And that's mainly from Patreon. If there was not Patreon, that would not be true at all. But the fact that that is there, it is just like, it's stagnant, but it's still maintaining itself. But one thing we opened up it's in the process of being opened up, is a radio station. And we have a path and it's actually gotta say, it's rather cheap to run a radio station, more than I thought it was going to be.
Until you
And
start
we have some
swearing.
really good people. Yeah, right. But the point is still that Eleni actually is just this guru and has way huge amounts of experience running radio stations and being on them. So she was able to break down for me like the cost of actually the fixed cost of actually putting together a radio station.
So how many revenue streams do you think you have at this point? I know you can't tell me all of them because you don't want to reveal your business plan.
So we have Chicago Reacts is now our biggest form of revenue.
Okay.
And then Hardlands Media comes in second place. And Chicago Reacts technically comes in third. And we have a number of different things that we're planning to launch. Actually, no, that's not true. Chicago Reacts is not third. Our studio space client work is third.
What about Patreon?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's all. I count it all as umbrellas. So anything that is working for Hardlands Media, which includes AdSense, Patreon, Odyssey, Rockfin, user donations, Streamlab donations. And that's it. But we have a lot of stuff that we're in the middle of launching. So one thing I'm really excited about is the client space, because we put a lot of work into making sure this is really nice and accessible for people in the city to just utilize. And then we're going to be starting a Twitch channel soon. And we're also going to be launching a second entertainment channel in the coming months as well, that we're in the process of working on. So 99 Perspectives is moving over to YouTube entertainment and expanding into that, and then space rental, and we're expanding that as well.
If you think about like other news media, right? I don't think they necessarily get a lot of like money from their news like content either. I'm talking about like mainstream stuff, right? There's a reason why CBS and CNN have an entire other block of content that's not news, right? I think that you guys branching out into other more monetizable stuff so that you don't have to sacrifice, what you do on Hardlands because of monetary reasons, it just gives you more options there, I think. But
yeah, it also gives us control of more keys as well.
Yes.
Going back to the original slide.
And I wanted to mention, we learned from previous experience. So originally independent media, now of course it's a different era, was, we had a couple of streamers like Kyle, etc., like maybe 10 years ago. And what they learned, or what we learned from them, is they relied entirely on YouTube. And then they got screwed. When the adpocalypse showed up, Kyle was like, oh, fuck, now I don't have any money.
They also relied on radio. A lot of those people, your Pac-Mans, your Kokolinskis, they had a lot of radio income to fall back on.
But that's true. But some of them did only rely on YouTube, and they got screwed for it. And Kyle might have had his radio and then was able to get his Patreon, but he knew better than just to rely on YouTube. And I think nowadays we all know you cannot 100% rely on YouTube anymore because of what they did to us back then.
Yes, exactly. And it's like even the way that the entertainment channels are set up, like a completely different person is on the names of all those accounts than myself. I'm on all the news accounts. So I think that YouTube is still a great place for entertainment content, and I think Chicago Reacts has proven that. But it's just not a very good spot if you're not accredited. And so that's what I was saying before, is that I think that, first of all, I think that to your exact point, anyone who is only doing news on YouTube and focusing on that fully is making a terrible mistake 1,000 different ways, because that's just going to lead to you being completely dependent on YouTube being kind to you, which is not what they're about. But for us, if we get a radio station call sign and we get Hardlands Media added into just one local news association, that is likely enough to get us accredited from the eyes of YouTube.
It's enough to get you credit. Now, what happens if YouTube still doesn't like what you post? Because they can still flag you and they can still do stuff if they don't like.
That's fine. We've diversified in so many different ways so that if there is an outcome, if there's a possibility in this where YouTube shuts down all independent media or hard lens, we'll survive it. We just might not do news at least for a year or two while we build up our power in other places to come back.
Definitely. Now, I wanted to ask about your new studio. Of course, you're sitting in it right now. What do you think the major differences are from your old studio to your new studio? What do you really like about the new studio?
So old studio, well, I guess there's different ideas of what they each were. The older studio was the idea of we wanted to test it out. When we first got into that studio that we signed a lease for, we had no idea if Hard Lens was going to succeed as a brand. We didn't know how everything was going to work. We didn't know anything. And so we wanted to pick a space that was affordable because we didn't have a lot of treasure under our control. Yes. And so we go into a place, and so that place was very far north in the city. So only a certain number of people could access it. And especially people coming from like the south side had to drive like an hour, hour and a half just to get there. And it's just, that's not conducive to making it easy for them to do and project their projects out in the world. But it's also limits the type of people that can bring them, as you're cutting out a whole part of the city. And the old space was not designed really to be a very good studio space. It was very small, it's cramped. It was on the top floor of the building. So most of the summer, it was like always 90 degrees in there. And it just became, but it served its purpose. It helped us test out everything that we did. And we left that space being the most expert OBS Streamlabs operators in the entire Midwest, that no one else that exists in the Midwest has experience in multi-camera use, multi-streaming, etc., recording, whatever else it is specifically for online use that we have now. So this new space has the room for not just the set that you're looking at right here, but we have 3 additional sets elsewhere. We have a radio and audio room that is completely soundproof that we put together. Over there, we have what will become the Twitch room very soon. And the location we're at now is right outside the center of the city. So it's very accessible for people to come in. So it's more able to bring in people. And of course, we're not allowed to say it at all, but the 2020 event that everyone's indoors about also was a huge factor in it, because when we first opened up client space in the old place, we did it right before things were not open. And so we had like 8 people sign up immediately, because it's like what we offer is no one else offers it, and we are very, very, very reasonable with how we offer it to people. What we give is a really great deal. And so people came in, and then as soon as it happened, everyone pulled out, but it showed us that the market's there. And so right now it's, things are opening up to a degree, or at least in people's minds. And we've had a lot of very good responses from people for the space. And we've had a couple people that, we've already known that are already using the space. Literally right after we're done interviewing right now, we actually have a really cool a client of ours who's going to be recording right here, right after I'm done. And that's really amazing, because that's always what I've wanted the space to be used all the time. And we have a lot of people that are interested. It's just like always, we've just learned to just get them in here. Once people are in here, half of them want to do a show. It's that simple.
Definitely. Now, I wanted to go back, looking back on the last time you were on our channel was the US Solutions Summit, I think. Now, looking back on that, what are your thoughts on that event? Now, we're going to probably do another one at some point, but what are your thoughts on that particular event, looking back on it?
I think that well, right now it's very hard. Everyone's trying to do a summit of some kind. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
I think that there was, some technical issues. It'd be good if the technical lessons from the last summit were fixed and applied to the new one. I think you're going to have a really, really good position to be in. But as just like the way I look at anything, the summit is going to be good if it ends up giving power to the right people. And once I see that, I'm going to be like, yep, this is a great thing that a lot of people should be, and I'll throw a lot more support behind it. But just like anything, I see now a lot of people doing a lot of different summits, which I'm really excited about. And I want to see the ones that work the best do well. And I want to help the ones that are doing the best because they're the ones that are creating the most keys.
Definitely. Now, because you produced it, yeah. And we're like, I guess we'll do that.
Yeah. We had done a few Chicago events, not exactly to the scale, but similar in scope.
You should have seen our reactions when all that stuff was going down.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, yeah. Yeah. And so like, even for us, it's like the stuff that you guys were doing, like the summit concept we hadn't enacted in that same way before, but all the individual technical pieces that you guys were utilizing, we have a lot of experience with already. So it's like, we're already used to bringing in at any time for any reason a bunch of remote guests and managing them. So we already got that down. We already know how to deal with multiple cameras. We already have the software and it's tested with thousands of hours at this point for operating it. But I think, again, that's what I was saying before, that it's the person who does it. It's usually it's not the first person who attempts the summit that gets praise. It's the first person who successfully puts a summit together that gets the praise. And I still think that we still have a lot of time. And I think that it's good that the test happened. I look at that last summit as a really good test of summit doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there's premiering trailers all day. 10.
Yeah.
Because you guys, I don't know, from the outside, it does seem like you've used some elements of that model, some elements.
Yeah. So yeah, this even on timeline, I can go into that. So when we were first doing Hardlands Media at the very start, that was, we had just come fresh off of victories at Wolfpack, which of course is TYT. I met Cenk Uygur 2015 at the celebration party for when the TYT Chicago had raised all that money. And so at that point in time,
you guys actually got the resolution passed though, right?
Yeah, we got it. We were one of the places that got it done. And so with TYT back then, so it's like, okay, then we feel positive about them. So we want to emulate a little bit. And so you have a large desk format with multiple people sitting side by side, which is the classic anchor position. That's definitely originally from TYT. But again, to say that's TYT's is TYT took it from everywhere.
Yeah.
as well. So in that sense, yeah, we had a format, but doing a daily live show that was very TYT inspired. But you know, as we've seen TYT and seen how not as much as they changed, but our perception of them has become more accurate to the reality of who they are. We've done a lot to actually emulate the opposite of what they do. So one thing that was very important that me and Kit talked about, and it's been how we structured ourselves together, is Cenk Uygur took on too much control at once. He was the head anchor and head of the business at the same time. And we said, even this is even when we were looking at TYT more favorably, we're like, we don't want to do that. That's a really bad idea to have someone do all those things. And that's why I became much more of the back end person, and Kit became the anchor role, because we realized you can't do both of those and do it forever and remain sane. And so that's an example of that. We also looked at how TYT was bringing in money and how they were doing that. And just a lot of stuff we did not like about their model at all. And we felt it was doomed from the start for a lot of different reasons. And we've learned a lot more. I'm not technically allowed to say, but there is more that we've learned since then that's even more eye-opening.
And my last question is, before we wrap up, is you were part of the Wolfpack. You and Kit, I know, did some stuff with that. How do you feel about Wolfpack now?
I still think it was one of our best moments, because we still accomplished something that very few people accomplished. We did it with almost no people. I think it was 20 people over a year. Got the fourth most corrupt state in the union to pass an anti-corruption amendment, even though I'm sure from their point of view, it was like, oh, this will never pass. We still got it passed in Illinois. I still think it was one of our finest hours, but it was not supported. Actually, that's the reason we left Wolfpack, is once we completed our tasks successfully, faster and better than any other state, we asked to, and this was mainly Kit's, he wanted to have us go and train all the states around us in the Midwest. And their reply wasn't, that's a good idea, super successful group of people that just successfully with very few people got this done. It was, no, we are doing this a certain way, and you are not going to go out there because we have some unrelated thing we tried to do once and it didn't work when we did it, so it's clearly not going to work when you do it. That's what led us to make Hardlens.
Yeah.
But we still did it. We still pulled off a miracle. And well, it was not a miracle. It was all of our hard work put together. It was planning, but it's the moment, it's the event that really showed me a small amount of people doing the right thing at the right time in the right way can get a lot of powerful things done.
Yeah, I still have a lot of respect. I think Wolfpack needs to distance themselves from TYT at this point if they want to continue to be successful at all organization, because that's just going to hurt them in the long run. They're trying to be nonpartisan, but
no, it's a TYT company.
It's a TYT company. That's the last thing I heard from Mike is they're regrouping or whatever. Mike,
Yeah,
I like
doesn't
Mike.
mean anything. Their entire thing, we've heard back from some of those people that are still pretending, like there's literally someone in Illinois who's pretending to run it like they matter as a human being, but they're just there for the clout. And but it's like they're like what they tried to get me and Kit involved, and they're like, hey guys, want to help me defend the amendment from people that are trying to shut it down? Like, well, you've already failed if you're trying to defend with 4 states something that needs 35. So that doesn't seem like something that's useful. It's not a good waste. It's a waste of our time.
Oh yeah, no, look, I like Mike. He was one of my first interviews, but they just haven't done anything recently, and their connection with TYT is only hurting them, and they can't get out of that probably.
And now it's so funny that that Wolfpack was shut down by Common Cause. I still think that's hysterical.
That's horrible, but you know,
but we weren't supported because that's, again, this is exactly the problem with Cenk in the way he did his job. He never took Wolfpack seriously himself. It was just a vanity project to begin with. And because his time is split way too much, he's an anchor, head of TYT, business dealings, flies around. He didn't have any time to dedicate to Wolfpack, so it was just listless anyway. It never could have survived beyond the small groups that did.
He needs to separate himself. He needs to release Wolfpack from his complete grip and let Mike Mineta do it himself and step away entirely.
Yeah, I want to know where all the money that got raised for Wolfpack did not get spent.
That's a good question. Yeah, but
Yeah. I made this point on the show a while back, and it's is someone besides TYT continuing to exist, every other project Cenk Uygur has made has failed. Every single one. He's tried to get 2 people elected, including himself, to Congress or to government. That failed. He got an irrelevant amount of votes. You had Wolfpack, which had momentum that he intentionally or just neglectfully cut out of the picture. And then you have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, $2 million raise, $500,000 per journalist. All of them got fired immediately after that was done. Is there anything that Cenk Uygur has done besides TYT, and also all the satellite shows that he had around TYT that he's since shut down?
What about Rebellion Pack? That's pretty much disappeared.
Yeah,
after
he
RP election.
hasn't. He has no successes except
He's
for the
divided
continuation of
himself.
TYT. Yeah. Isn't that something though? Isn't that amazing that the most successful parts of TYT are all the people that have rebelled against him?
Well, here's the thing about Cenk. Even if Cenk was the most well-intentioned person, he has too many projects and he has too many things, and he cannot divide himself among 12 projects. Even if he was this firebrand progressive for real, it wouldn't matter. You can't have 14 projects you're the head of. You can be associated with all 14 projects, but you can't run all 14 projects yourself.
Yeah, like even me, like I'm not even running 14 at this point. I'm running like 7, and I still am like, okay, I can't full-time hard lens anymore because it wouldn't be fair to either side.
Oh, exactly. When I started KRTD, I had to step down from 9 other things. I can't. It doesn't work like that. You cannot do 10 things and expect that your energy. Like if I was doing those 10 things, KRTD would have failed at this point because I wouldn't have the time and energy to put in here.
Exactly.
But I digress. So we're pretty much out of time. Do you guys have anything new coming up? Do you want to plug where people can find you? And
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, you could definitely find us at Hardlands Media YouTube. I think that's where a lot of your audience will most likely want to get a hold of us from. But we're actually in the middle of updating our website. That's going to show all the cool stuff that we're doing. It's actually probably the best place to find all of our links for everything, and that is 99perspectives.tv. But you can also find it at hardlensmedia.com.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's in the middle of getting updated. Heller's actually our web assistant. He's been doing a great job, and it's going to show a lot of the new studio. And that's the view that you see right outside that window. Oh yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I don't use it, but it's there. I'm a lot more secluded than Kit is. Actually, ironically, the best way, if you don't know me, the best way to get a hold of me is to get a hold of Kit first. But you can also, you can email me as well. I mean, I'm very task oriented. I'm not as much people oriented.
Sure, hold on. Hang on. Everyone wants to get a hold of Daniel. Let me grab your phone number, post it in the chat. No.
That's it. But I can give it, if someone does want to reach out to me directly and they don't want to go through anyone, just reach out to me at contact@99perspectives.tv.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Bye.
Okay.